Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Has anyone else encountered shadow people? Were you sleep deprived? If yes, how long? Was it just visual or also auditory hallucinations? My experience? I went 4 full days without sleep. Yes, there were some Adderall involved. Anyway, on the 3rd day I started to see shadowy mist forming in my peripheral vision. Defocusing my vision would also summon swirly smoke-like clouds in front of me. Random textures would begin sneaking into and surfacing over any previously featureless background, like my white walls or the white background of the coursework page I was busy with. They didn't bother me much at the time, so I just kept working. It became problematic at the end of the 3rd day. Shadows would start taking more elaborate shapes and move with purpose. But the thing that made it increasingly difficult to ignore was the accompanying whispers and assorted noises I knew weren't really real, but with every passing hour I could be less and less sure about that. I would keep hearing non-existent flies and other insects buzz by or land on me. Sometimes I would manage to grab the culprit, which was tangled in my hair, or so I thought, then bring it in front of me to find nothing was there. Still, I was somewhat calm. Come the 4th day, shit went mental. In my peripheral vision, I would see faces pressed against the glass of my room's door, which vanished just as I look. I would hear barely indecipherable conversations happening in the room next to mine, knowing full well that I was alone. I could tell that they were talking about me. I would run to the other room and catch a glimpse of a foot disappearing right around the corner of the next room, and the next room when I got there. Shit was going down around me at a distance where I could pick it up but couldn't quite interact with it. I would look out of my window, and for a split second everyone on the street would be standing still and staring straight up at my window before turning and walking away as if nothing had happened. Damn near shit my pants. I figured I needed to get out, so I went to grab some water from the store. On the way, I could see everyone in my peripheral vision staring directly at me, whispering disapprovingly. Some people would be full speed sprinting at me. Of course, they were doing no such thing when I stared back. I would feel taps on my shoulder, breathing on my neck. It was beyond uncomfortable. The store seemed to be full of people plotting against me, which was ridiculous, of course. But was it? I noped out of there, basically ran home, trying not to acknowledge the people hiding behind every tree and lamppost as soon as they came into view. I got home, was hearing my flatmate doing something in the kitchen, out of view. So I tried to strike some small talk to seem normal. We talked about the weather and whatnot for a bit while I took my shoes and jacket off. I then finally go to the kitchen and of course find nobody there, but hear some people giggling behind me as I stand there in disbelief. I just had a back and forth conversation with someone who wasn't there, so I took a Xanax before I went full-on psychotic and went to sleep, vowing never to stay awake for more than 2 days.
Yes, back when I was 12 and playing around on a spirit board, I began seeing this shadow man who appeared as a silhouette of a yellow red-eyed man wearing a trench coat and a hat. I saw him several times before my mom began researching him and found that others have seen him too. He's usually referred to as the Hatman, and supposedly he's an omen rather than a being. I'm not sure, and honestly, I don't even know how real my experience was. I was also on psychiatric meds at the time and under a lot of stress. PIC related.
I had just fine sleep and everything, and I saw one once. It was during a really bad time period at home, and I was just walking through my neighborhood. I live in a shitty small town about 30 minutes from a place called Modesto, at about 10 p.m. or so. There have been a couple weird things that have happened to me or a few friends here, but it was pretty late, and I lived in an area that's more on the safe side of town, so I wasn't worried about shit, although I always bring a pocket knife just in case. I was just walking towards the end of a street that has a forced right or left, and straight out there's some country, etc. To my right, about 15 yards or so, there's some bushes about 3 feet tall or so, and I see someone standing there for a second and duck down below as soon as I notice. At this point, I'm pretty sure it's just some dude about to jump my ass and not thinking it's anything paranormal because I had never heard of shadow people and whatnot. so I crossed the street while strafing to make sure I'd be a little more prepared. But when I saw the spot, there was nothing. As I walked past the spot, some small weeds across the street that lead to the country move, as if someone stepped through them, though I saw no one. Needless to say, I walked home briskly while not looking away from that spot and grasping my knife in my coat pocket. Now I'm constantly wondering if I'll see another one sometime.
I used to leave my TV on when I was a kid because I was afraid of the dark. One night, I had a dream in which a shadow person exploded out of my TV, yelling, "Help me! Help me!" There's also many dreams and sleep paralysis episodes from my childhood in which shadowy hands would reach out from the crack where my bed meets the wall, so I would get the habit of stuffing it with my blanket.
This is not a joke. I am 35 years old, married with a child. I started to see really fast shadows out of the corners of my eye about 2 years ago. I also started to hear whispering that I couldn't make out around the same time. Fast forward to today. I am able to see the shadows plain as day. I know when they are near. I can feel their presence. The whispers have grown into words and phrases. I truly believe I am haunted. My wife insisted I see a shrink about all this. I went to this doctor 2 weeks ago. They put me in a fucking nut house and diagnosed me bipolar with severe anxiety depression. The lithium, Seroquel, and Klonopin have taken the whispers and shadows away, but it's also taken me away. I don't feel like myself anymore. I've never thought so much about suicide. Shit feels bad, man.
You are just more in tune with seeing the truth. Our doctors today don't want to believe the things we see because they can't. Don't be afraid of them. They are only strong if we fear them and give them that strength. Look directly at them with no fear and repeatedly tell them to leave, and they are unwelcome in your household. Be strong, Anon. It's scary, but you can do it.
Hi/X/I need your expertise. Last night I was sleeping in bed next to my girlfriend. At around 3 a.m. I was dreaming of an ex. I can't remember exactly to what degree, but I remember it being a relatively pleasant dream. I suddenly felt what I can only describe as a mental option coming from what felt like another entity. The option was between dropping down into a darker place or continuing. I had never had this feeling before, or anything that felt like a mental connection like that, in or out of a dream. My curiosity was raised, and as soon as I agreed, I remember instantly my dream shifting into a dream or forced or unpleasant sex with an older man. It did not feel like I was involved, but it was as if I was being shown the feeling of it. Within seconds of this, because it was so unpleasant and surprising, I woke myself up. Once I opened my eyes, I couldn't move. I was on my stomach, and my left arm was up in front of my face. What I can only describe as latched onto my forearm was a small 2-foot-tall being. It may have been just a large hand from the underside of my bed reaching up. I couldn't tell. It was dark, darker than the rest of the background of the room, but not by much, and it was slightly waving on the interior of its shape. I couldn't move, and it felt like it was this entity on my arm, holding me there, latched onto me somehow. I forced myself to speak, eventually yelling, "Please, please, please," over and over. I honestly cannot remember if I was speaking directly to this shadowy shape or to my girlfriend. I wanted this experience to stop very, very badly and be distanced from whatever had given me this option. I was very aware of her behind me sleeping on the other side of the bed. She woke up and reached over, shaking my back shoulder to wake me, saying my name and telling me I was having a nightmare. After maybe 10 seconds of this shaking and telling to wake up, she said my name twice in quick succession. At that moment, I was able to move again. The shadowy figure was gone, and I felt free of it. I was still as scared and just turned around and snuggled into her. I felt that love was a protecting force. I'm not sure if this was just a comfort reaction or what. We didn't speak really about what happened, but she comforted me a little without words. I couldn't sleep again for a few minutes, so I turned on the Spotify app on my TV. It cast a dim light which made me feel a bit more at ease. About 5 minutes after this, she woke suddenly because of a noise she heard, but I did not. We both then could hear a few creaking noises from there. This is not too unusual, as I live in an old house, so we just both slept after this, attributing it to nothing. I still didn't tell her of my experience because I didn't want to scare her. Today I woke up and just felt very depressed. I eventually worked, but have definitely felt kind of low all day for no reason. 4 hours ago I got a nosebleed, which does happen to me sometimes in the winters. 2 hours ago I had a visual distortion I've never experienced before. This distortion was something my mother experienced when she was a child. This is exactly what it was like scintillating scotoma. I'm prone to being a skeptic, but this felt too coincidental. And I have never felt strongly enough to post or felt this type of mental connection to something else. Is this just stress? Just sleep paralysis? Was I visited by something? I can't lie. I am a little nervous this will happen again, though I am not really afraid. I never felt it would hurt or force me. I felt overwhelmed, which is where the fear came from, I think. Can you help? Should I accept again if it returns? What should I ask it?
You had an episode of sleep paralysis and are probably still feeling the effects of anxiety and shock from the trauma. Relax, take a deep breath and realize what you saw was not real.
I agree with this. It may be real in some sense, but whatever it is, it can't do much to you from a waking, rested, healthy state. If you suspect stress as a factor, you probably know you're stressed, and that could be it. I have had my mind construct elaborate paranormal structures in a desperate plea to get me to slow down my life and take care of my basic needs. Good luck, and don't be scared of the bumps in the night. I just keep my eyes closed.
The sleep paralysis seems like the best answer for this. I had a horrible dream one time where a witch with a white face and an almost lifelike black shroud surrounded her. She was hovering over my bed, and it was almost like she was kissing me, but it was sucking out my soul. The experience was absolutely terrifying, and I felt paralyzed too. I think there are forces in this world that are literally unexplainable. The only thing you can do is tell yourself it's just a dream, because the implications of it being real is like the dream. Absolutely terrifying. I would suggest leaving where you live. I'm not trying to scare anyone and find the idea of it childish and showing of poor character and immaturity, but if you have the resources to leave, then I would. I don't like the place I'm at now, and it is one of the many reasons I'm leaving this godforsaken apartment. I literally know of a stabbing that took place in my kitchen before I moved in. I think sometimes a place can have a tragedy happen within it, and it leaves a kind of mark or a charge. Human emotions are very powerful things, and I believe, like a rape or murder, can leave a negative charge in a residence that resembles a door or gateway that makes it easier for spirits or demons to make an entrance. I also have scotomas migraines. I used to call it the liquid snake in my eye. My grandmother had them too, so I'm guessing it's hereditary. This is starting to creep me out a bit. To the person who originally wrote the post, do you have M's in the middle of your palms? Like this pic.
Babby's first experience with sleep paralysis. OP. I've experienced sleep paralysis multiple times, and I still remember some of the experiences. I remember a shadowy figure at my bedside staring at me, but I couldn't move, yet my eyes were opened. I remember seeing some demonic shadow creep toward my bed like it was about to kill me. It's called sleep paralysis. Look it up. It's fairly common, and some people actually experience it quite frequently. There is a medical reason behind it. Just look it up. You literally wrote a bunch of shit over sleep paralysis, and whatever this thing said to you, it was probably just in your head and part of a dream. Now, if it returns and keeps saying the same things over a period of time, then I'd start to be worried you might be going insane.
Hello/X/. I come to you with a story and a problem, and I was hoping someone here could give some advice. It involves my wife, who is currently suffering from a chronic illness and may also be the victim of some type of parasitic shadow entity. I'll try my best to explain, but it requires some backstory. So essentially, my wife believes she picked up a negative entity as a child when she went to retrieve a ball from an abandoned property on a dare while she was living in Florida. Something about the place gave her an intense primal fear and even gave her nightmares, and she is certain that whatever this thing is, that's where it came from. Since then, she would, though rare, experience consistent paranormal activity throughout the rest of her life. It would primarily be the appearance of a shadow-like being that would follow her, house to house, no matter where she lived. This entity had also purportedly been seen by her friends and family. The most dramatic occurrence was when the entity appeared and let out a loud demonic growl while she was with a group of friends. Outside of that, the paranormal aspect with it was rare and far between. Her life in general, however, was quite a mess with drug abuse, alcoholism, backstabbing family members, abusive relationships, you name it. If there's any truth to entities feeding off of negative energy, she was a buffet. On top of this, she has this near debilitating chronic illness for most of her life that wasn't diagnosed until just a few years ago. At the time, however, she never really put too much thought into it other than, weird shit happens sometimes. That was until she had a chance encounter with a medium who stopped by the liquor store she worked at in Louisiana. The medium was checking out at the register when she looked at my wife, grabbed her by the shoulder and said something along the lines of, "Your aura is weak and gray, there's something feeding on you." The medium also went on to state that she luckily had another entity acting as a barrier, protecting her from the parasite's full power or something to that effect. This encounter had my wife questioning her prior experiences, and it was from then on she started looking deeper into it. Years later, the crazy lady at the liquor store would be somewhat vindicated by my own mother. You see, my mom is a fairly proficient astrologer. When my wife and I initially started dating, she asked my mom for a reading, and one of the first things she stated was that my wife had some kind of psychic vampire that's been attached to her almost for life. However, there was a subtle protective influence as well, almost verbatim what the medium claimed. I don't recall the exact placements that had my mom come to this conclusion, though I know it involved Neptune and a stellium in Aquarius 12th house my wife has. Adding on to circumstantial proof of this thing existing, not terribly long ago my 3-year-old son had this brief stint where he claimed to be seeing a big ghost he called Mem in an incredibly matter-of-factual way. He would often come up to me, grab me by the finger and drag me to my bedroom and make me look under the bed. "Mem's down here?" Which of course I see nothing and I have to pretend there is. Anytime we ask questions like, "What does Mem look like? Where does Mem come from?" etc. My son just replies, Mem, big ghost, Mem's here." It wasn't until my mother came to visit we got some more concrete answers. He pulled the same routine with her, except he took her into his room. He showed her a novelty light-up Halloween mirror we put in there for him as a nightlight. Mem live here. Mem go in head. Points to forehead. Mem give bad dream. The fucked up thing is, he's had night terrors nearly every night since he was a small bean. Not taking chances, I threw the mirror away, and curiously he hasn't mentioned Mem a whole lot since. I'm not certain if Mem and my wife's entity are the same, or if Mem is just the concoction of my over-imaginative little boy, but given the circumstances, I still found it quite eerie. As for myself, since being with my wife, I've had a few instances where I thought I might have seen something out of the corner of my eye a few times. Usually just an amorphous dark blob that vanishes as soon as I glance over. A few times I've woken up and thought I've seen a shadow under the crack of my bedroom door, but not anything crazier than that. The night my son told my mom about Mem going in his head, my wife and I speculated on Mem being her supposed parasite entity. Being proactive, I pulled out my phone and looked up ways to remove negative spirits. When I shit you not, I instantly broke out in hives, primarily on my neck, back, stomach, and ankles. It felt like I had fire ants from hell biting me from under my skin. They lasted for about 4 hours. I've gotten spontaneous hives like that maybe twice in my life. It could have been a coincidence for sure, but honestly, what are the chances? It's been the past few weeks, however, that have been the real kicker. My wife's illness has recently flared up so severely she's physically incapable of taking care of herself, let alone our kids, and I still had to work. So she was staying at the hospital while my children stayed with another family. For about a week I had the house to myself. The first few nights were quiet, though I was seeing the eye corner shadows a little more frequently. A few times my children's toys would turn on by themselves when I was on the other side of the house. Had my glasses disappear one morning only to find them in one of my wife's plant pots. Then I saw it. I finally saw the motherfucker. Full frontal. I got up in the middle of the night for a snack. Pickle spear wrapped in pepper jack cheese. Good shit. When I turned back to get back to bed, there it was, in the hallway. It was about 7 feet tall, jet black and amorphous with a sort of white smear where a face should be. I tactically shit bricks for about half a second when it disappeared in a blink. I stepped outside and chain smoked until I felt it was safe enough to go back and sleep. It unironically looked similar to pick-related, but instead of a face, it was a smeared blob with 2 dark spots that could have been eyes. Only other notable thing to happen since then was the other night. When I went out for a smoke, I saw what looked like an orange-sized purple orb. It had a visual texture similar to that of sheen on oil. I stared at it for a fraction of a second when it popped like a bubble. It looked very similar to pick-related. My wife is back home now, but her condition is still declining. I've seen her have flare-ups, but this one is unprecedented. She looks like she is wasting away in front of me in real time, and the drugs the hospital gave her don't seem to be helping. I'm genuinely scared for her this time. I wouldn't go so far to say that this mem demon parasite ghost thing caused her ailment, but I feel like there's a real probability its presence is exacerbating her condition. I haven't told her about what I've seen the past week, as I'm sure it will only stress her out, and she has this thing about talking about it. She thinks it will make it more active. I'll be taking her to her mother soon for a week so she can see the kids. Is there anything I can do to abate this thing while she's away? If I need to find a medium, psychic, or healer, etc., how can I make sure they are reputable and not just a new age hippie charlatan? Is there any way to strengthen the positive protective entity, if it exists? I feel like she's going to have a much harder time healing if this thing is still lingering about the periphery. Thank you for your time /x/. I appreciate anyone's comments or counsel on this situation.
Burning white sage in the house can't hurt.
I saw the Hatman. I was 15 and it was the night before my GCSE exams, so I went to sleep and had a strange dream. I dreamt I was in a familiar place with familiar people, which was the Workmen's Industrial Club, where my friends and I spent a lot of time for band practice. The dream started off as normal, with all my friends just hanging around and goofing off in the main area, just like waking reality. But at some point I decide to walk through a door that leads to the backstage area, which I do, but it leads to a room that I've never seen before, and which doesn't exist in reality. As a result, I become aware that I'm in a dream. At the exact same time, all my friends that appear in the dream suddenly stop what they're doing and shut down, becoming completely silent. They're just watching me now as I stand before the door. I decide to go in, and the door shuts behind me. The room is dark and bare. There's nothing inside except for a mirror. I get a vague sense that I shouldn't approach it and check my reflection, but I feel compelled to, and do so anyway. This causes me to get sucked in and start falling through what I can only describe as a hellscape. Everything is red and black, and there's really loud noise all around, like distorted screaming and an elevated heartbeat, all accompanied by a feeling of pure dread and terror. When I come out of it, I'm back in my bedroom, and there he is. A large, unmoving silhouette of what appears to be a well-dressed man in a hat looming over the foot of my bed. There is no definition to him whatsoever. Obviously, I'm completely paralyzed and accompanied by the extreme dread and terror that comes with sleep paralysis. It lasts about 10 minutes before I'm able to move again. Obviously, it fucks me up and I'm not able to go back to sleep, so I go on the computer and learn about the existence of sleep paralysis for the first time. Wild. Also lost my lifelong ability to lucid dream after this experience. The fuck, man.
I had a similar experience when you looked in the mirror. Did you see his face? How would you describe it?
I didn't see him until I was transported back to my bed. There was no face, no red glowing eyes as many images like to depict. He was completely featureless, no definition at all. You couldn't make out the folds and creases in his clothes. The moonlight and street lights seeping in from outside didn't affect his figure like it would a real person. There was no depth whatsoever, just a completely black silhouette.
April 2006, 1 hour before dusk, rural Virginia. My brother, 2 cousins, and I were playing a game of war. I was teamed with my cousin as the attacking side. We were patrolling around the farm trying to find my brother and the other cousin. I spotted movement going behind a shed and told my cousin that we will flank it from the left via the woods. We set up so we can see the other side of the shed and waited for my brother and cousin to walk into the ambush. Sure enough, I see a single figure crawling on the ground, but something felt wrong. I turned to my cousin and asked, "What is my brother's name doing?" My cousin was frozen in fear and his face had gone white as chalk. When I look back, I see that the figure was crawling on all fours as it slowly moved over the lowest rail on the fence. The figure was entirely of black shadow, but not transparent. I would estimate its height at 4'8", horribly thin, and of a masculine frame. However, my eyes were locked on the hands, which were long, thin, and moved over the ground like a spider that was stealing carefully towards a fly. I was instantly afraid for my brother, because I still assumed he was behind the shed and would turn into this thing. The fear for my brother gave me courage to take 3 steps forward towards the creature, and as I took the last step, the thing suddenly looked at me and my cousin. I heard my cousin gasp in fear and I halted my advance on it. The creature seemed to see us, but we could see no eyes to confirm that sense. Whatever the cause, the shadow creature retreated slowly and crawled away as it kept its face towards us. I started to advance again, but my cousin yelled and ran to the house. I followed close behind him in order to get our parents to investigate and help. To our surprise, we found that my brother and cousin had been inside the house for the last 15 minutes. The adults made an investigation, but no trace of the creature could be found.
Be me. Be in my early 20s, having trouble sleeping because of diverse issues with friends in uni. Don't want to use conventional sleep aid. Hear about tryptophan and its potential use for better sleep. Order a bottle and try it for a week. Works like a charm, but with some really fucked up dreams. One night, I'm having a nightmare. Set is an open space work office. My field of view covers the whole office with several desks and people behind them. On the furthest point of my vision, the end of the open space, I see a grudge-like little girl with the typical black long hair covering her face and the dirty white gown. The more time passes, the closer she is from me, although I never see her move. Kinda like that one SCP where you can't blink. Something like 30 minutes passes in the dream, and now she is right in front of me and screams, "Fuck.jpg." The whole scene abruptly changes, and now I'm in a more familiar place talking with a friend. We aren't really talking, but more like violently arguing about some stuff. I feel hate and contempt toward him. At some point he says something about a guy I know, but that he couldn't possibly know. Wait, that's not possible.jpg. This must be a dream. I wasn't aware prior to this. When I realize he couldn't possibly know that other guy, he's from a different country, my whole vision becomes a grid with thick black lines. Each square then falls apart like dominoes. I wake up in my bed but can't move at all, paralyzed. I can feel and see 2 demonic entities each on the left and right side of my head, baby-shaped cherubim like demonic entities, all black. I hear them say my name several times, anon, 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 while making heavy and loud chewing noises. I suspect that's because I'm insecure of my little excess fat. Motherfuckers were feeding on my louche. Like they purposely made me have nightmares to have a meal. Fuck shadow people. Never use tryptophan again. Another one I have, but much less interesting. Be me. Be last summer. On vacation with the GF. We are on a boat to get to the island where our hotel is located at. I'm feeling down and anxious because of a random event that happened during the day. Something completely mundane, but that somehow triggered a PTSD-related memory and put me down. I never diagnosed or on anything. There's just no better word to describe that. We arrive at the hotel. My GF goes into the entry corridor first. I struggle a bit carrying the luggage through the stairs. I see something in the corner of my eye where the entry of the hotel is located. Motherfucking fully black stick figure with smoke-like features entering the hotel, gliding a few meters towards me and disappearing through a wall of the corridor. Motherfucker wasn't satiated enough and wanted some more. I feel a chill down my spine, climb up the stairs and get to the door of the room where the GF is. We fuck and fall asleep. I feel much better the next morning and during the rest of the trip. Mr. Shadowy Fuckface never reappeared.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.